Welcome everyone, how is it going? Thank you so much for joining us once again for episode 2 of Cleaner's Corner, the Back 4 Blood themed community podcast where we talk all things Back 4 Blood, whether it's the game, whether it's community, all that good stuff. I am your host, Mustard, joined again by Big D, who is the co-host, but today we have a special treat for you watching at home. We have our first guest, hopefully first of many, but definitely quite the strong one to start off with. It is Anxiety. How's it going, my friend?
Not too bad. How are you doing today?
Chilling. Big chillin'. We are currently recording this in between Christmas and New Year, so we're kind of in that weird purgatory week of the year where it still feels like a holiday, even though it's technically not. We're all in good spirits. We've been big chillin', and I'm very excited to just get into talking about some of these topics we've got to cover today. First things first, I do want to wish all of our viewers at home a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, whenever it is you end up watching this, and I hope that things are going well for you and we're all in high spirits. But today, we have some interesting things to cover as really I would say, elephant in the room. We may as well get out of the way immediately. Yeah. Massive patch. We covered it in episode 1. It was on the horizon. We had the roadmap, but nothing really too stellar to go on. But from then to now, the patch has dropped. There was 16 A4 pages of patch notes. And yeah, the game is very, very different. Now, without talking about, I think, the main topic of this, which is going to be Nightmare, lads, how are we feeling about the game with the majority of the fixes, right? Whether it's bugs, whether it's quality of life, general changes. What are we thinking?
Okay, so I've said this a lot on my stream, and then even when I was in Tony's stream. By the way, I'm calling you Tony. I'm not calling you Anxiety because I say the word anxiety enough as it is. Smiles all around. So I've mentioned this before, and this is the best way how I could phrase it. For the 99.5% of the player base in Back 4 Blood, this patch was incredible. It was. It fixed a lot of the issues that they had. The spawns were fixed. Nightmare was toned down. They added some burner cards, got rid of, the insanely pungent play that was the speed, rushing. For the 0.5%, the patch was good. And the reason why I'm saying that is that, I'm not tooting our horns or anything, but at the end of the day, we're in that very small percentage of the player base where we were farming Nightmare. Like we would grab a team and then we were enjoyed to, bashing your head against the wall to get, through to the next checkpoint, try to get our SWAT skins or whatever else was there. And, you felt that rush, that anxiety come up when you get close to the greenhouse and T5 and all that stuff. And the reason why the patch is now just solid for us is because we're missing that, or I'm saying, me, maybe you can agree with me, Tony, maybe not, that rush where you feel like every corner was super dangerous because Nightmare was like this insanely difficult mode is no longer there for us. Now, it's good for the game, but for us that was really gunning to consistently get our SWAT skins and, that prestigious feeling of showing one off, I kind of lost that a little bit. Now, the game is still great, but that's why I'm saying it's amazing for most of the player base, but then for us, it's just a good patch. So I need
to back up for a second.
Yeah.
Did you call speedrunning pungent? Was that the word I
I couldn't think of the correct word.
No, I like pungent. Makes me think it smells like piss. So yeah, I would agree with that.
I don't know the word I was looking for. Very
effective.
No, pungent's fine.
We're gonna call it pungent. Pretend that's the right word.
I'll just go with the flow.
Make a new deck called pungent.
Well, I know that really is going to be honestly, no surprise that's kind of the first thing that we're talking about, to be honest, considering the significance of it. But yeah, I think you're onto something in terms of just how it's better for the majority. But I mean, you've basically just got us off to a great start, really. I think, but regardless, I feel like the way I see it is those of us that were able to just beat Nightmare beforehand, and it was just the default normal difficulty for us. Again, and I'm going to say this because I know what YouTube comments can be like. I know it's going to be oh, you're just arrogant, you're just bigging yourselves up, you just, tooting your own horn or whatever. But those of us that were not struggling with it, are the casualties of the patch. But And not to be devil's advocate, I personally don't mind as much because A, the real one, we know there's a new difficulty coming, and it's already been confirmed via, threads and forums that it is going to be a new harder mode. So fingers crossed that hard, difficult itch can be scratched sometime in the future, hopefully near future, when that is introduced. And B, I feel like, for me, liking the changes to the cards and the quality of life changes and some of the fixes on some of the specials kind of outweighs that for me, because I loved the game beforehand, but there were some real frustrations with the way some of the specials behaved, with some weird bugs that were in it. Obviously, item duping was a real, downer.
God, that's gone.
Amongst a few other really weird, clumsy issues that would be a constant occurrence, a lot of those aren't in the game anymore. So even though the game,
really good.
even though Nightmare is obviously, I mean, it's Veteran Plus now, right? But
Yeah.
knowing that the game itself is a bit more stable around it, the bugs got fixed, the specials, Rika's having a wind-up time and tracking less well, easier to hit weak spots on Tool Boys and Bruisers when you're looking at them from the front, Hocker's having a longer cooldown. Those kind of changes, I feel like, have made things a lot more consistent, right? So for me, that's kept it going for me in terms of, how I'm still able to find fun with it. But how about you?
That's why the patch was so good. And there's one more thing before I move it over to Tony that I wanted to make sure that I said. If the new difficulty was rolled out with this patch, we would have nothing to complain about.
Yeah,
true.
Straight up nothing. Like, if it just came out at the same time, there's nothing bad about the patch that anybody can say. That's all I'm gonna say. So, Tony, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, I thought of, like, the way that I sum up how I feel about it is that, like, it's good for the game and the community, but the change is bad for content creators in terms of Nightmare. All the other patching and stuff I think is absolutely fine. The most nitpicky thing I have about it, maybe, besides, like, the changes that they made, I felt like they could have maybe left Nightmare alone, but I understand why they did it. So now it's more of like a casual ramp up in difficulty. But, like, the only nitpicky thing I have is with stingers and how they have cooldown when they're on the walls. I feel like the one instance where, like, stingers should be able to machine gun fire you is if you don't focus them and you let them latch onto a wall immediately, because then it gives them sort of like a niche where they're more dangerous and where you're gonna, like, want to switch your focus to them. That's, like, the one thing for me. But
it actually kind of feels like, so that one specific thing, I don't know if it got changed, because I feel like with literally 16 A4 pages of patch notes, it was a good bet that not everything was going to make it in exactly as the patch notes said, right? But with stingers specifically, where it said they can't machine gun you when they're on the wall anymore, I feel like I still see them do it all the time. But I don't know if that's just them still being slower than before, and it was particularly fast beforehand. But I feel like I still see them shoot a lot. And it's really weird, because it's only with stingers. I don't get that kind of doubt with the patch notes with any other special. But for those, I still I can't help but notice it. But I don't remember exactly what it was like before. So for all I know, I'm just like, just remembering it wrong. But it's an interesting point you make, though, about it being a bit of a hit for content creation in Nightmare, because that is actually a point that I feel like I haven't seen brought up as much that is kind of relevant, where I can only speak for myself as a viewer, right? When I watch streamers, I watch other people, because I if I'm not streaming Back 4 Blood, I lurk a lot of Back 4 Blood because I like watching it. I enjoy supporting other creators and stuff. I find the game a little bit less interesting to watch when difficulty doesn't have that challenge. On the flip side, when you can have the option to self-impose that challenge, whether it's like, I've been doing solo Nightmare with bots, and that's a handicap that is not as enjoyable to go through as I thought. But like Swing Point is trying out no card Nightmare. Like, there's a lot of self-asserted handicaps we can do to, I think, still give somewhat of that, same element. But I definitely think that for that reason, I hope we get the new difficulty sooner rather than later, because there's only so many challenge runs you can do, and even then, on current Nightmare, challenge runs still aren't that much of a challenge. But I guess we'll see.
This is the biggest issue that I have with the challenge runs. And at the beginning, I was like, I'm just gonna. I have my chat make the most grief deck possible, and then I just go into Act 3 with it and see if I could do it. The issue with challenge runs for me, and this is the first time, because like I mentioned, the first episode, is that this kind of ignited my love for this genre, so I'm not like too familiar with like challenge runs and all that. But I've come to notice that I don't enjoy challenge runs as much, for the sole reason that you don't get to experiment with other play styles as much, because you're spending so much of that card system trying to make it difficult to the point where now I can't run a sniper build and have issues getting through something because I'm sitting here trying to disable ADS and, use a pistol only or whatever the case may be. So I think that kind of brings up the argument of where do we draw the line between difficulty and artificial difficulty? And I think that's also something that should be talked about a little bit.
Well, everybody thought Nightmare before was artificial difficulty. I can't even say the word difficulty. They thought it was artificial difficulty before, and it's just hard for the sake of being hard. Spawns were broken. It was still very doable. It wasn't artificial. It's we talked about this for a tiny bit before. It's just people refusing to learn, or how to adapt their playstyle. They're like, no, I saw this one person do this one thing, so I can do exactly that. But that's not generally how it works, because the three of us plus Swing and the other streamers have put in the time to be able to learn how to play certain ways and make it work, especially considering team comps and what cards are played against you. But now lots of those choices in Nightmare have been taken away, and that was a thing I was a giant fan of in this game, was how everything was a choice. There was a plus and a minus to everything. It's the argument about removing attachments. It's well, if you could just take them off, that would get rid of lots of the interesting dynamic of choices and running through and finding different things. If you're just able to get whatever you want, whenever you want. And now with the new patch, it's even if you make it harder on yourself, there's no interesting choices anymore.
I mean, I feel like a good example of that is pre-patch. I never took glass cannon ever because I was it's just not something that I would recommend doing unless you're really building around it or you're very prepared for it. Post-patch, I'm throwing glass cannon on every build and not even realizing I have less health. That's the side of it. Whereas you're allowed to make a lot more mistakes. You're allowed to play worse and be really sloppy because there's a lot more means to kind of bring yourself back up through it. But what I think is, it's like you said, right? The November Nightmare patch accidentally made things a bit harder. So Nightmare from November to now, even though they've hotfixed some stuff in the back end, has still been harder than Nightmare at launch. I would say. So the fact that we went from launch Nightmare to accidentally harder Nightmare to this nerfed Nightmare, if it wasn't from the accidentally harder Nightmare to this, it wouldn't have felt such a steep sheer drop between what it was meant to be and what it kind of is now. And I feel like that's the biggest thing for me. So it's important that the majority can enjoy something, but if the hardest difficulty has no real challenge, it holds no weight as being a hardest difficulty, right? Think of God of War. You play Give Me God of War mode, or Ultra Nightmare and Doom Eternal. These are difficulties where it would be nice for the majority of people to play them or to be able to beat them, but those that do beat them didn't just pick up the game and boom, they've done it. It will always take time to invest, and that's kind of the appeal for someone like me. The appeal of hard difficulties is it takes time to learn, so you can end up getting good at it. And even if you're good at it, it still carries a certain level of challenge, and it isn't something that you'll effortlessly still be able to just breeze through.
Yeah,
I feel like that's what people sounded like they wanted Nightmare to be, and now it is. I don't know. I feel like it has just kind of lost that air for me. I like hard modes being the hardest mode and feeling like it,
It doesn't feel like it deserves the name Nightmare anymore. I'm not trying to bad talk it because I still do love the game. And the next topic we're probably going to talk about is Swarm, which is
for sure.
my newfound love for the game. But it just doesn't feel like Nightmare.
Nightmare is now.
You mentioned the joke, Veteran Plus. That's literally what it is to me. And while it's good for the game's longevity and lifespan, it hurts for us.
It's wet dream mode now. It's just you can just cruise through it. I mean, obviously, not everybody can. People still struggle with it, but then it's I urge those people to maybe reevaluate their strategies for how they're playing. Because still, if you had to jump from Recruit to Nightmare, you're probably going to get spanked, but not
honestly,
as badly.
The last thing I want to talk about before we do Swarm, I feel like there's actually a lot more of that now. People that just barely did Veteran and are now just going straight into Nightmare. I'm seeing a lot in Quickplay. I think it's because they know that Nightmare is quote unquote nerfed, which in turn Quickplay is very much still Nightmare in itself. And that's because people don't take the time to learn before jumping into the hardest difficulty with Is that you?
No, you just reminded me of another because I was like, no, it just came to me. I was reaching for that idea on the top shelf there. With like the quick play changes, making sleepers not cull hordes on veteran is actually like I would say that's a horrible change actually.
Yeah.
Because then now people do recruit and then vet sleepers don't do anything besides like tickle your armpits and you're giggling on the ground. But like Nightmare, you do it, you get grabbed from one, you expect to tickle, but then a horde comes. And now people aren't going to be ready for that, like especially new people jumping into the game.
I feel like veteran was supposed to be this like stepping stone to prepare you for Nightmare, and I feel like veteran itself has kind of lost that purpose.
I would argue that it never did. I feel like one of the largest problems with this was veteran was so far below Nightmare pre-patch that it almost didn't even feel like an in-between mode. Like recruit to veteran, you could feel that slight curve, and then veteran to Nightmare was like, you know, going up Everest quickly, you know what I mean? Like it was that instant disparity between the two, which I feel like is less so, but not because veteran is harder, but because Nightmare got so much toned down. But
I think it wasn't meant to be, maybe not literally that, you know, that midpoint between, but it's like kind of like that skill check where it's like if you're having troubles on veteran, do not go into Nightmare. Like maybe it wasn't supposed to be close to Nightmare, but that is the telltale sign that if you are having issues with veteran, do not start Nightmare yet. You know.
Well, fingers crossed. In about 2 or 3 months' time, these conversations won't matter because we'll be playing on the new difficulty, and all this will be irrelevant. And there'll be more gradual processes to getting from recruit to eventually the hardest mode, whatever it ends up being. But starting off this, it might sound like we're kind of just, being negative and complaining about it, but this is what we've spent a lot of time at, towards the later part of this year doing. But that is not to say that we've gotten bored or stopped playing the game altogether, because, we all still create content for it. We're still streaming it. We're still playing it a lot. And that takes us perfectly into our next topic, which is, I would say the main benefit we have to this is the fact that we have Anxiety here with us, who I would say is the premier #1 kind of swarm enthusiast for the game. Now, I didn't do this at the start of the stream because I'm a terrible host, but you are a Back 4 Blood streamer, right? You do a lot of swarm. Introduce yourself within the game. Like what do you bring to Back 4 Blood?
Oh God, absolutely nothing to the table whatsoever.
No quality.
I have just slammed you on the spot. Like, talk about yourself.
Hi, my name is. I started like mainly Swarm, then I like shifted into Nightmare in terms of like what my stream content was for Back 4 Blood, and then I got on that Nightmare bench for a long time, and now back to Swarm, and like the kind of funny how it worked into that. So I started on PvP. Because I had played through like on the beta, like there was only it was Evansburg and Blue Dog Hollow in the beta, right?
I couldn't even tell you, honestly.
Yeah, Mustard did not touch Swarm in the beta. I can tell you that much.
So, well, like 1-1 for campaign, there wasn't a lot of campaign to do. So then I went to PvP for about 50 hours and loved it. And there's like 3 sets of levels there. And then coming back to the game, like I played through Vet, did a lot of Swarm, and I was like, you know what, I'm ready for Nightmare, because Swarm was too easy because people didn't know how to play yet, and I had the advantage of spending way too much time on Swarm prior to the release. And now it's at that point where Nightmare's too easy, so I make the switch back to Swarm, and the general like quality of teams and like gameplay is a lot higher now. So Swarm is kind of like, I don't want to say the premier challenge, but it is definitely the more challenging mode, depending on like what sorts of teams that you get, now that there's more knowledge on how to play. If you see a Mustard stream or a D stream or a Swing Point video, your level of play is just going to be so much higher. So then they bring that to Swarm.
I appreciate the props.
Yeah. So now Swarm is sort of more of where that challenge is, because like, Nightmare was like super communication heavy, if you were on a good team, to clarify. Right. And now that's sort of back in Swarm, where you need like high communication, good call outs. You need to be very like resource wise, because it's RNG resource, which is maybe something to touch on a little bit later in the Swarm discussion here. But like you have to make do with what you have. Like Swarm is a lot of like split decisions really, really, really fast, like all the time. So you need like a high level of communication and like coordination, all of that. And it's just sort of the challenge, I think, that's in the game right now versus Nightmare. And it was slept on for so long.
And that is the main thing I wanted to start this discussion with, though, is the fact that Swarm is a mode that is, and I am absolutely an absolute offender of this, is a game mode that has been largely ignored But now we're getting to the point where obviously the game's been out for like 3 months, and we got a nice chunky update, and those of us that are still playing are looking for things to play. So I have noticed a considerable spike in creators and just general players that are looking into Swarm that weren't before. So you have this nice dynamic of players like yourself that have been super dedicated to Swarm and have put 100 hours into it already. And then you've got players like Big D, who has only really started playing over the last week and is having a blast, really getting into it, learning it. I've already seen custom games between streamers and everyone's having a blast. Obviously there is that layer of competitive, but everyone's having fun. I'm watching entire groups of players having a lot of just genuine fun with the game because of the PvP. And I'm watching that is making me want to give it a try, and I'm someone that I could not have given less of a crap about Swarm beforehand, not because I'm against it, but because I got into the game for the campaign, and the campaign has given me more than enough replay value to keep getting, more out of campaign, to keep playing it. So I think, yeah, overall Swarm is a niche mode in, I would say, a niche genre, but I feel like 4-player co-op survival, Left 4 Dead really pioneered it, and it's become much more of just an accepted thing. I mean, God knows we're getting enough this year. We've got Anacrusis coming out in a few weeks, Rainbow Six Extraction, Dark Tide is coming out next year, World War Z just got a massive, there's a million games all coming out, so it's becoming more of a mainstream thing, where, mainstream PvP, I think it could work together. Let's talk just a little bit about Swarm as a mode. What is the appeal? What makes you play it?
Well, I'm definitely with Tony. I always said, and I've mentioned this a million times before, that people slept on Swarm. And before I get into that, I actually think what Tony said brought up one of the reasons why Swarm was so slept on. I think because the first impression in the beta was bad, because no one knew how to play. So they're like, all right, well, this seems a little underwhelming. I'm just going to go play campaign.
Was there not, and feel free to correct me, but wasn't there an issue with just quitters? People would it would go wrong and they would just leave straight away.
There's no penalty. And I think even that there's not really that much of a penalty, really, but at least now if someone on your team leaves, your team just gets a little bit extra perks, or, maybe a quicker respawn time if you're on the mutation side, or whatever the case may be. But like I said before, I have been advocating Swarm since the beginning, saying that because it's not campaign versus, everyone writes it off, and now it's just this mode that is just automatically seemingly inferior to campaign versus, where in all reality there's a lot that goes in the Swarm, and there's a lot of different ways to approach, whether it's the map, the cleaner make. Obviously, you're not going to go with one incapacitator, whether it's the Hawk or the Stalker, and go straight after Evangelo, who gets a free break anyway. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it that a lot of people don't think about. And in addition to the upgrade system, which Tony can, vouch for me on this, you can upgrade the commons, you can upgrade every single type of mutation. And now you have to be smart on what you're going to be spending your points on, what maps complement certain mutations. It goes on forever.
Yeah.
And him mentioning how you have to have split decisions, Mustard, that's why I'm telling you that I think you would like it. Us as fighting game competitors, former fighting game competitors, we know a lot about split decision making and being really fast on your feet and having to do stuff like that. That being said, because this is such a complex mode, I am saying it now, and I hope you guys are behind me on this. We need a spectator mode. And the reason why or a spectator slot in private only, because imagine a situation, let's say Anxiety grabs a sweaty stack of 4 people, and then we get Kendrick or Mustard, or not Mustard, because you and I have a different role here, but Kendrick or Lily Zoinks or Lady Harada or any content creator out there to get another sweaty stack, and we do a 4v4 exhibition and you and I commentate it. If you want to talk about how to showcase high-level Swarm and to showcase how good the mode really is, we need some form of spectating. Because you and I will commentate it, and you know damn well that shit would be fun to watch.
It would be really entertaining. And that's not even just a Back 4 Blood thing. That's just a lot of games nowadays still surprisingly completely do away with the spectator role in a game. I think normally it happens if the game isn't designed to be like super sweaty esports. But I think even if you're playing like casually, having some sort of spectator like option is important. Just because again, it's longevity, it's quality of life, it's options, it's things to do. You know, even if you're just watching your mates play, you're just watching your friends play. It's like it's something that would help a lot, and it's something that well, for example, you know, this will be going on our YouTube. You've seen on this channel, Battle Mode, Doom Eternal. What you've just described is exactly what Ketchup did and still does, because I've actually brought it back for a bit as well, the Friday night fights with Doom Eternal.
So now, we've mentioned that like Swarm is this big complex mode. There's a lot more to it than, you know, what you might see in the very beginning. Mm-hmm. What have you learned about Swarm, starting with, you know, first getting into it as compared to now where you've really kind of sunk your teeth into it?
It's a lot of like, and people might not like think of this looking at it. It's very like team comp heavy, I find, for like little things like having a mom or a doc or like an Evangelo or, you know, whoever on your team. You can kind of like assuming the other team's actively thinking about it in their 4-stack, like who's going to fill what role and like what you should like look out for in terms of like focus and everything. There's like a lot of small details to sort of analyze in a quick amount of time. It's hard to say without like showing a match, because I think it goes over like a lot of people's heads, like some of the decisions that you make. Right. And like that's probably where like commentators would help to explain that, right? Where it's like if like someone's position on a map, if people are like muling like their team comp and everything, there's a lot of like small things and like just like a lot of like conclusions that you can draw just from seeing like their team comp and where they're going and how the match is going to go or how you should play it, especially if you see like what perks they're running, which the only one that's like super clear are if they're running like revive speed or bomb squad, because bomb squad is sort of like the meta right now, which you guys have used bomb squad or seen bomb squad in campaign. It's still that strong in Swarm. It's like the hard counter to tall boys. So it's there's just a lot of like small intricacies in like the strategy.
But you know what really interests me about that description though, especially when you say like you look at the characters and what role they bring to the table and like whether you should go for them first or whatever. What that reminds me of, which is also another Turtle Rock game that I absolutely adored, Evolve. Did anyone, either of you play? Yeah, of course. Yeah. Did either of you play Evolve? Right. So that game had a very similar dynamic. If you're playing, you know, the monster, like you would have to prioritize the team in that way, because the team was going to have a medic, a trapper, an assault, whatever the other one was. I can't even remember the name of it now. But you would have to like, you would know what those roles brought to the team and how the team would fall apart if one of them was gone in a certain order. And I loved that. I thought the dynamic of that game was incredible for that kind of like tactical thinking, the plays you could make, game knowledge being rewarded. And what you just described sounds literally like that. Only impactful.
Well, I mean, if you want to talk about games that deserved a better fate, I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. But,
indeed.
Unfortunate.
You know what? I've been to the Turtle Rock studio before when I was in Orange County, and they actually have a nice wall with the portraits of each of the hunters from Evolve on the wall.
That is so sick. I remember
it's very nice.
I remember this was back in like 2015 when Evolve had a pro league in for ESL, and they had it at the same time as we were doing the MKX Pro League. So we were living in Poland to commentate Mortal Kombat once a week, and they would use the same studio and the same backdrop for Evolve. So we'd come in, you know, Wednesday morning, you know, to get set up and get ready, and the production guys would be like swapping the backdrops. So every week we'd come in and see the studio decked out for like Evolve backdrops and Evolve panels.
Pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, and then
you never did any work with Evolve?
We never. No, we didn't. We would just watch it when we were there waiting for our stuff to start. But no, I know they had Evolve. They had the season finals at it was in Burbank. It was the same studio they used for Fatal 8.
For Fatal 8, but then wasn't that the same studio for season 1?
It was, yeah. It was the ESL Burbank like main studio. Yeah, they used it for season 1, actually all 3 seasons and Fatal 8, in fact. So it was all under. Sorry, just random useless information. It was all under the same roof. I remember that being really cool.
Tony's just sitting here like, what the hell are they?
No. You actually just reminded me of something Swarm related during this. I just didn't want to lose the thought again. I'm reaching back up there to the shelf. So like something I would want to lay out for both of you then, because I'm not sure like how deep you've looked into it yet, Dean. But so like swarm mode, the cards, like there's less cards in swarm mode and some of the same cards from campaign, but they do different things.
Correct.
Like reload speed is higher. Like the
Mhm.
reload drills one, it's like 20% reload speed on campaign. I think it's like 40 or 50 maybe on
Wow,
swarm. Or
Oh,
it's more. I don't know if it's that much more, but it's more.
100%.
So, and I think one thing that Swarm could actually benefit from, on a side note, is having more cards switched over to it to make more varied decks. But like Swarm deck building compared to campaign is entirely different as well when you take a bunch of stuff into account. So like, attachment box in campaign, you can find those around Swarm mode, but there might only be one tool bag that spawns randomly on the map to open one of those, and then it's an intel card from your deck. So you could get like different stuff running earlier on that game. It might be a reason to run Carly's to get an extra intel card, which is huge as well. Like Carly's very, very useful in Swarm for that reason alone, because one card can make such a huge difference on Swarm. And you get 5 cards for the first round, then 4 after that, because you get your starter card, then you get to pick 4. So the way that you have your team comp, who you're playing, and like what you're expecting to go on, can like highly change the way that you would want to do your build or do your round builds, and especially if you get like an early card in either of the rounds or not, which is like a super interesting thing to keep in mind. Hybrid decks are way more viable in Swarm than they are in campaign, for the sole fact that you have less cards overall to choose from, and way more utility. There's like less flat damage cards, but there's like Marked for Death and Shredder, which are still super strong in Swarm.
Oh yeah, great.
But like on top of that, like in terms of like looking at characters and stuff for like who to focus, it's like if you're looking at an Evangelo, it's pretty safe to assume that he'd be running the breakout card as well, because it gives him a cooldown on his base breakout. So he's getting like a free breakout every 30 seconds. Stun guns are way better in Swarm because there's lots of like in-cap builds, right? Like crushers, hawkers to like grab and stop you. And that takes out a whole quarter of your team for a set amount of time. On top of that, it's like then if you see an Evangelo running around, it's like if you confirm he's running breakout, he might have stun guns as well. So you wouldn't want to focus that guy with like a crusher, right? You're like, all right, so maybe I want to build a wretch with extra movement speed slowing on the puke, or maybe I want to buff commons, or maybe I want to use a stinger instead and get like a high cooldown so I can keep pelting him with bullets as he runs. On top of that give a slow. It's like maybe I should go into the utility build, because there's like a skill tree for each infected as well. So it's just like I just wanted to like bring up some of the decisions and like the way that you would look at it, like on top of your build and how you're playing infected. Like it looks shallow on the surface from just like watching it, because it's like, oh, PvP mode, but it's super deep for how short the rounds can be, which is why I love it.
I think that's really good, because it's welcoming to people that want to just try Swarm and see what it's like, because at face value, you can make it as simple as you want. It is at its core, at its basic foundation, Swarm is simple. Control a couple mutations and you kill the cleaner.
So what I think could be really useful here, though, is I imagine there'll be a lot of people right now watching that, because as much as we're talking about Swarm right now, it is still the lower played. I'd say if we had access to the information on how many players are playing what, I imagine campaign would still outnumber Swarm like 5-1 at least.
Oh yeah.
On the assumption that there are players that will watch this and they'll hear us talking about it and they'll go, that does sound like fun, I'll give it a go. But they do have that problem where they're a fish out of water, all of their knowledge is campaign, they don't really understand the mode, but they might have some friends that would join them. Present to me a starting point for a Swarm player. If you like Back 4 Blood and you're assuming they have a decent amount of game knowledge, let's say they can do veteran. And, they understand the cards, they know what the specials do, they understand the absolute basic but important knowledge of the game. They're looking to try Swarm. What should they play? How should they play? What should they be looking for? At complete basic entry level.
Before anything, before you even look at that Swarm PvP button, you go to the training grounds and you learn the control scheme for the mutations. Because if you try learning it in a lobby, you're just going to grief your teammates, because you're spending half of the first round trying to figure out why left shift with a hawker or something is jump instead of like actually shooting, the cleaner or whatever. Or with the tall boy, you're trying to figure out why, or with the crusher, why am I not being able to sprint or grab or whatever the case is. Just learn the controls, please.
Yep.
Do not go into a match without learning the controls for the mutations. That's it. Tony, you can talk about the card system, but that needs to be before you even look at queuing up, learn the controls. They are very different.
I think that's like a reason I've seen more people in Swarm recently, and I almost wonder if it's because they have that training mode where you can play as the infected.
I would absolutely bet money on that for sure.
Because very, very nice change. Try it out if you haven't in Fort Hope. It's like
Pretty
towards
fun.
the pond in the back, right?
I think I've never done it to learn the Ridden. I've only done it to fuck with my friends that are in the the outside.
That's learning, Mustard. That's learning.
Yeah.
I've been on the receiving end. We were chilling in the training room or in the range, and I was like picking my attachments, and all I heard was Mustard go to AD, turn around, and I turned around, and he was a crusher, and I just got grabbed right there, which is good, but it's a good implement. It's a good thing to have in the game now because you can actually learn the mutations because you have to. Like if you every second counts in Swarm, and if you're spending even if it's just 45 seconds on trying to figure out why the buttons are the way they are.
So let's say the players know how to use the Ridden, but let's say the mode itself, they're queuing into Swarm or they're looking to queue into Swarm. They've got some friends, they've never played it. How should they build? What should they be looking for? Where should their minds be at? So
assuming they're on a 4-stack, everybody fills a different role. So, like kind of the same way you'd want to coordinate campaign, hopefully, is to have like people fill certain roles. So like different ammo types, for example, because you do burn through ammo pretty quickly in Swarm mode because you are constantly swarmed, believe it or not. Medic is probably one of the most important builds, I would say, to have like a good medic on your team to keep everybody up. And which is also the hardest role, I think, to play in Swarm is medic. Because like if the team that you're playing against knows what they're doing, they're going to focus like Doc or Mom, assuming those are your medics, right? And then you're constantly trying to keep yourself full of supplies and keep all your teammates up with the absolute havoc of like multiple crushers or hawkers or stingers or like whatever attacking your team. So medic is probably the most valuable and like the most important role to learn, I would say, in Swarm in general. After that, you'd probably want to run 2 damages and maybe a like mule or off damage or like utility, someone like focusing on grenades, maybe use speed, maybe like an extra little revive speed, someone just to sort of like tick any boxes your team has left unfilled. But like a sniper build is pretty much necessary damage, I would say.
Yes.
Because like you could like bullet pen. Actually, here's the thing: bullet pen is useful in Swarm, especially like if you're running a Baird or a Phoenix, like you're gonna have some inherently. I don't know the exact stats. You'd have to watch a swing point video, but like you can shoot through like. You ping someone, you know they're on the other side of a wall, your sniper turns, shoots the hawker through the wall. That buys your team, depending they're like a full stack, it buys you like 18 to 20 seconds of one less special infected on the field. Right. And like Dee said, every second counts. Like that's another thing actually is keeping track of like how many special infected are down because you get about 20 seconds on a full 4-stack, which lowers because they get faster respawn if they're down a teammate. Right. So it's like, oh look, these 2 tall boys are running at me. Grenade them. Well, there's 20 seconds without 2 special infected on the field. So sniper, medic, like having 2 damages, specifically a sniper, I would say is very important. Medic is absolutely necessary. A Swarm sort of damage dealer, which could be like SMG, shotgun, assault rifle, your preference to like focus on the Swarm. And medic can also run that. And then probably someone with like use speed and utility on top of that to be grabbing items. Some people, I know for a fact, the Turtle Rock team does this because I played with them and I got barked orders, or rather orders barked at me to mule everything to a central location. This is like a pretty like strong strategy, but it's very time consuming as well. So you have to be quick, is to grab everything that you can and drop it in a central location because in Swarm, you have like the breakers bug field just constantly close in until 5 minutes where it hits the smallest point. There's so much, but that would generally be it. Like I could rant about Swarm all day about like little things to do, but
which is one of the best things about it because there's so much to it. And you know what the funny thing is? I know we're talking about like beginner stuff, but there's something you said that actually, as a fighting game former competitor, I think about mind games and like how you could do that. So you're sitting there, you know, a competent Swarm team is going to go after the Doc or the Mom or something like that because you would assume they're the healers. But what if it's the Evangelo?
Oh God!
Think about it for a second. Well, that's a good strategy.
It's one of my decks is like a move speed Evangelo, like not a lot of move speed, but like enough early on so that you can kite and everything. But then you also have the quick pickups so that you can immediately bolt to someone, get them up, and keep going. Exactly. Which is why Mom is like invaluable on Swarm because you get the extra life, and then she has that free quick pickup, and then you can just stack smelling salts and a use speed on top of that, and constantly have quick revives his mom, and just be really annoying. Like there's,
but she's not like the bona fide healer of the
Yeah.
group. So you're sitting there, trying to get her down and focusing her, but really it's the Evangelo that's the actual healer of the group. So it's always that mind game, because one of the best things Swarm has done is make you not only not know which player is using that cleaner, but you don't see their decks. And I think that's actually a really good factor in Swarm. I think that makes it that much more interesting.
Well, it reminds me a lot of, I'm trying to think of games I can compare it to, but I feel like ultimately it will boil down into that kind of like, maybe like isometric, outnumbered kind of. I don't even know the name of the genre, but the Dead by Daylight, the Resistance, the Friday the 13th, the Evil
asymmetrical
Dead.
multiplayer.
I think that's the one. But those games, that is exactly the appeal of it. I know for myself, when I played a lot of Resistance, that's what I loved about it, was the build variety. If you're playing the one, you get to absolutely like outsmart, and you've got to outthink an entire team of people, and make those reads, make those decisions, and play those mind games. And if you're playing on the other side, even if it's not 4v1, it is an even team game, like that constant dynamic is why the mode is fun. Is why the game is fun. And in a game like Back 4 Blood, where the gunplay feels great, the movement feels great, the card system is really rewarding, and like just it's fun to shoot things in the game. You know what I mean? It's fun to play. Like that alone, combined with everything else that we've been talking about for like the last 20 minutes, makes the mode sound a lot more appealing than I originally would have given it credit for. So I really do hope that there's more potential for it. I think ultimately, as long as the game has good crossplay, it will never have a player population problem. I think even if the game hard drops off on like PC, or let's say a year from now it leaves Game Pass, like even if this game's player base drops considerably, as long as the crossplay works, it is never going to be dead. And that is always the benefit of crossplay, especially with a niche mode like Swarm, that let's hope that, 6 months from now, it is still going strong, and there's, you queue in seconds in, you'll get a game, and you're not just finding the same teams over and over and over again. But on the off chance that it does die down, it's never going to truly die because of crossplay. And this kind of game is always going to have players. Even games like Battleborn, that is actually dead now because they turned the servers off. Like, even if a game like that had crossplay, it would have been fine. And that's another game that kind of filled that similar kind of PvP niche. But I think that's one topic of the discussion that we don't bring up enough, though, is even if the game mode isn't super well populated, you're never going to struggle to find a game because it's got crossplay. And console gamers make up like the vast majority of pretty much any game out there, really. So you're never going to have that problem, which I think is a massive benefit to those that enjoy the mode.
Mustard, I got a question for you really quick.
Sure.
Did you play like the super OP high health core Spencer in Resistance?
I was a survivor player exclusively. I think I played one match as a mastermind, and it was because I queued up by accident. No,
that's so sad.
But if I played mastermind, it would have been Spencer.
Yeah, he's funny. So I just needed to know. That helps me decide what kind of person you are. Like your Resistance main.
I've never played it, but I've seen YouTube videos, and it actually looked really interesting.
It was so fun, man. Like, it had problems, don't get me wrong. Like, the biggest issue by far was its netcode was straight out of the Stone Age. It gave the mastermind, who was the one. Basically, the way I can describe it is, imagine it wasn't that you played the specials, it was you controlled the AI director with, like, you were given a bar of mana to manage, and you would spend the mana on the AI director. That's basically how the game worked. But the game was designed
like a low-key, like real-time strategy sort of
That's how it felt. If you were playing Mastermind, it was similar to a strategy game. If you were playing Survivors, it felt like Dead by Daylight kind of thing. But
this is gonna be super off topic, but we don't have to spend a lot of time on it. Is Resident Evil Reverse going to be the same thing? I don't know. It's
that's got to be canceled. They've not shown anything.
So, okay. Resistance.
I don't know what it is. It's just sitting in my library.
It's bad. I
will try and summarize this as best I can without going off on a tangent, because God knows I could and have done. But so Resident Evil PvP has not had a great history, right? Generally speaking, it's very tacked on. It's not great. Generally, Operation Raccoon City, versus mode and like Resi 5 onwards, like not really happening. Then Resistance comes out, and you've got a true original, new, fresh, made for PvP game, not made by Capcom. They've let a third party have a go at it, and they've made something incredible. Like, it's original, it's unique, it plays great. Yes, it's got problems, but a lot of that was like, Mastermind got host every time, so Mastermind could just play from McDonald's Wi-Fi, and now the survivors will lose. And it had these really weird stability issues where, you know, players could get kicked out, and there was no punishment for quitting, and this, that. But the game was fun. It was really fun. But they killed it after 6 months of post-launch support because Reverse got announced. Reverse has gone from maybe the first original PvP, amazing Resident Evil PvP experience that has existed since the dawn of time, with the exception of Outbreak, because Outbreak was fucking incredible, but actual competitive PvP for what is basically a really soulless third-person shooter where you play a bunch of asset flips from other Resident Evil games. And they pushed it back like 8 months, and we don't even know if it's still coming out. It's made by the same developers that did Resistance, so I'm going to go in with a certain level of optimism because they made a great game, but if Capcom have probably had some hand in forcing them to make this one and not support Resistance, and I'm pissed. I am upset about it.
The reason why I'm laughing is I can't wait until the episode gets, like, you know, we put everything together and I got a chance to watch it. I want to see your face throughout that entire rant. I actually want it, because as like a little behind the scenes, Tony and I don't see Mustard's face because he's the host of it, so we don't get to see his actual reaction. I can't wait to see when I say the words Resident Evil Reverse or whatever.
Sorry, I can't. No, I can't help it. I'm hardwired. I can't. Oh, dearie me. But no, Reverse is... They did one beta for it, and it was a disaster, so I'm not...
It was awful.
Not filled with hope. Like, I had fun with it for like 10 minutes, and then I felt like I had experienced all the depth that it had to offer.
Oh, that's a bad sign.
Know, the thing that makes me sad about it is the fact that, like, with the bioweapons they put in Reverse, it's like, those would have been great added to Resistance. Those would have been good.
Absolutely.
There's so much they could have done.
I do have a segue to bring us back onto Back 4 Blood. You mentioned that there was in Resident Evil, what was the other game
Resistance?
called? Resistance, because I've never played it, but I did see cool things about it. You mentioned there was no penalty for leavers. And I think that's something in any aspect of a multiplayer game, whether it's co-op or PvP, you need not just a penalty, but like a low-key harsh penalty for consistent leavers.
I mean, a deterrent, ultimately. It's to make it so selfishness is punished.
If you're not enjoying yourself because you're getting crushed, you're just going to leave. There's no, you know, there's nothing there. And then you ruin everyone else's experience.
Well, can you imagine that in a MOBA? Can you imagine queuing up for a League of Legends match at half an hour, 35 minutes in, it's not going well, you just leave and queue again, and the game lets you do it? It would be even worse than it is now.
I talk shit all the time about MOBA communities because I spent 8,000 plus hours on Dota 2. But guess what? The one thing they do right is that if you leave a game early and you abandon it, you get sent to the fucking trenches. And you have to do what they call a low priority game, where you and all the other scum that talk like shit on the internet are now you are forced to play with these kinds of people on the internet. And guess what, buddy? It is not enjoyable.
That's got to be the most toxic all chat in any video game.
I call it the cesspool. Yeah,
that sounds
about
right.
Is this fucking just toxic puddle of just horrible people on the internet that you just are forced to play with. And I got sent there because my internet cut out, and that's just the unfortunate aspect of it.
Yeah, I believe you.
Listen, I rage quit once or twice, okay? But I'll tell you what, never did it again. You want to know why? Because the punishment is not being able to queue up. It's being able to queue up, but only with those certain players. And that is a fate worse than death. So if there is a way to somehow... maybe not do that with Back 4 Blood, but like if you constantly leave, you're not even allowed to like play online for like 30 minutes. And then it's like an hour. And then it's 2 hours. And then it's a day.
And the game uninstalls itself. And then it refunds itself to your wallet.
You go to click play on Steam and it just says no. And then it goes back to the library. Like something like that you want to deter. It's like a Siege. if you like leave or you team kill someone, what is it, like 30 minutes and then like an hour or something like if they do something like that, that's the way to go about it. You need a deterrent. End of story.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I thought
No,
I
I agree. I
just went on a rant, dude. I had to let people breathe for a second.
Just got to exhale. But no, I'm really happy we talked about Swarm because I don't know anything about it. I know it's something that it's a good direction the game could go in now. Obviously, longevity and all that. And there are still people, getting into it, have been playing it. And honestly, I think things are looking good for the mode. And I think, should we see some like community exhibitions, if Turtle Rock themselves are really enjoying Swarm still and they play a lot of it, like I think there's a lot of potential there for some exhibitions to be set up, even if it is just like done grassroots, if the game doesn't have a spectator mode, we can at least figure out how to do it amongst ourselves. Like I'm sure it can be done, and I think it'd be great.
I think that it might end up being like just the way that I've seen the directory go for like the main Back for Blood streamers. I have a feeling it might end up becoming like the main content until we get a harder difficulty mode. Because there's only so many times on Wet Dream difficulty that you can like watch someone go through, especially if they already have all the SWATs.
Yeah.
That it's like, well, there's like no challenge here. There's like no difference.
It's
They're
just
not
about
getting,
keeping things fresh, right? Yeah, it's not watching the same thing over and over again. Because some people might like to, for example, speedrunning is fine. Because speedrunners don't mind doing the same thing over and over, and speedrun fans don't mind watching the same thing over and over because it's about doing the same thing but faster. I don't know if the main game has that same appeal, but I guess we'll find out. The game's still relatively new, and just because one patch hasn't gone the way that the hardcore Nightmare community doesn't mean the game is instantly going to die and content's going to go down.
Yeah,
but if it helps,
absolutely.
Keep things a little bit more fresh and versatile, and definitely got the potential for that. And that actually does bring me though, as we are going into, at the time of this recording, like I said, we're in between Christmas and New Year. 2022 is around the corner. We did have that whole year of roadmap. I think with the exception of the new difficulty, because we've kind of already covered what we want from that. Right. What are you hoping to see from the game? Number one, if you could pick one most important aspect that you'd like to see about the game, either change or improve on or add or, anything like that. What are you looking forward to in 2022 for Back 4 Blood?
Tony, you can go first.
Oh, okay. Well, if you insist.
I mean, please, mi casa, su casa,
Well, we're getting the 3 DLCs spread throughout the year. I think was on the roadmap, right? No visible delays that we're aware of yet. For any of that,
expect them,
I will expect delays just because obviously COVID's still happening. So I will expect some delays. So I'm not going to be super disappointed if it happens. But yeah, they are coming.
There's the new cleaners. There's new cards. I guess like the big one then besides the difficulty would be like the new co-op mode. I think a lot of people are going to be stoked for, and there's like a lot of speculation on what that could be. But then with that, the new cleaners and the new special infected, because I believe they're adding like one new ridden type, I think per DLC or something like that, or at least in the first DLC. I would assume it's going to be
just about
DLC.
Something new from everything in the game. It feels like new guns, new cleaners, new enemies, new game mode, new difficulty, like new everything. Yeah,
skins. But like for me personally, out of all those, I'm more excited to see the Ridden. Just going back to Swarm mode again, I won't get into it, but just like seeing how that changes the dynamic there and what they could also add to Swarm mode, expand it in terms of that, I'm super excited for. And then the second thing would be the new co-op mode, obviously, because hey, a new mode to play with everybody.
What do you want it to be?
I wouldn't be super shocked if it and what I would be okay with too is like like T5, you're in the house with and all that, and then like if it would be some sort of like time-based holdout, because they already have like the systems in place where you can like barricade windows. There's a copper system, like almost think COD zombies, right?
Oh,
what if they had something like that? Where you're like holding off in a place, or you make copper, like a copper kill or something, where you can move around an area or buy supplies to make you hold out faster, whether it's kerosene, propane.
At its core,
razor.
A horde mode, right? Like a horde mode that,
an actual horde mode.
Loads of games have, but done well. Like, so not to throw the game under the bus, because I talked shit on it last month as well, but Aliens Fireteam Elite, I enjoyed that game. Before I say anything, I really enjoyed it. But that game had a horde mode, but it felt very tacked on. You know what I mean? It was like, it was a single level, it was pretty small, there was no real variety to it. It was like, there's a box you can buy stuff, there's a box you can buy ammo, there's some health items, and enemies come at you, and that was it. But I feel like a game like Back 4 Blood could do a mode like that, but with the depth that you just described, right? Being able to barricade things and maybe take some of the upgrades, maybe getting cards on the fly, like, you know, the corruption cards could be added. There's a lot more potential for it to be done well. Like, that's what I hope it is, because I agree. I would love to see the new co-op mode, and I hope it has, if a new mode that has the same depth of, like, campaign or Swarm as another option of stuff to do, I'm all for it. Like, all for it.
Yeah, because I mean, like, in my mind, if they're trying to get a new mode out and we didn't hear anything about it until, like, the roadmap, the thing that makes sense to me anyways is because they already have all those systems in place, is if they made a completely new map, or if they took, we'll just use T5 because that's, like, the easiest place, like a big-ass place to hold out in, you add a store to it, they have all these other things in place where it's like, you know, like where the director plays cards on the fly, like the Charred when you get to the forest on Act 3. They could have it ramp up like that every, like, couple minutes. It's like, oh, now you have to deal with Blighted. Now you have to deal with Charred. Or now the tall boys are monstrous. Oh, look, there's 3 ogres outside. Good luck. Like, you know, that stuff's already in the game. I guess it would just, and obviously, like, I have no game dev experience. But if that stuff's already there, they would essentially have, like, what, the skeleton for a new mode like that?
Yeah, I guess
I mean,
the
they've got the
framework is
assets.
kind of already set in stone for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you. I think the co-op mode, I think, like, how they worded it is a code name, because if they, I think it's campaign versus. I'm going to be honest.
Oh,
with
yeah.
you. I straight up, because I think if they said new PvP mode, what else could it possibly be? But if they label it as a co-op mode, I think there's a lot of
Team
ambiguity in there.
deathmatch, 4v4 cleaners.
Hey, bro, I would be all in.
Yeah,
Listen, I would be all in on that. You get to pick your guns and stuff, and then you have, like, it's kind of like Hunt Showdown, where it's like cleaners spawn on different sides, and then you have, like, PvE elements. So then there's going to be wretches. And
yeah, actually, surprisingly, World War Z had a mode like that where it had PvP, where it was, so it was like, you know, team of survivors versus team of survivors, but that it still had, like, an AI director that would send, like, loads of zombies at you in the middle of the fight.
See, that sounds good to me, man. Hunt Showdown is a great game for that reason. Now, it's not everyone's thing because it's much slower paced, but imagine, like, faster paced Hunt Showdown where it's like you can move really fast and cleaners are everywhere, right? Because there's so many different cleaners. You can technically have, like, an 8-person free-for-all with a bunch of, you know, PvE elements. I think that'd be cool, but I'm telling you, I see right through them. It's campaign versus, but they didn't want to say it's a new PvP mode to help keep that under wraps. I'm calling it now, so down the road, if that happens, I'm a genius. I see right through them.
The thing with that is they'd have to, like, keep it locked to, like, recruiter veteran difficulty, because already having AI controlled special infected would make it infinitely harder, I think, because we have the ability to reason instead of just spam tall boy spawns, which, I mean, maybe the same thing to some people, but
I mean,
you know,
I would have to be able to choose. Maybe be able to choose between the two. You could have a veteran or a recruit.
So, not to go back into Swarm too much again, but how is the enemy, like, damage output, like what is it similar to of the campaign difficulties as it is currently? Because it definitely doesn't look like things are hitting with nightmare damage, but they're definitely not tickling either.
It literally depends on your upgrade paths, because you can get stuff where, like, commons hit harder, or, like, ferocious tall boys where you swing harder or do trauma damage. It literally depends on your path of your upgrades, but I'd say it feels more in line with maybe veteran than recruiter nightmare.
Maybe slightly lower than veteran.
Yeah.
At least at base value, but then, like you said, when you're upgrading everything, it goes right towards the way Nightmare is now.
Oh, okay, cool.
You know, not pre-patch Nightmare. So if you're good with spending your points, which, by the way, I didn't even fucking know this was part of Swarm. You can use your points before being able to actually afford the actual upgrade. So you guys can pool your points together to get an upgrade that you otherwise can't afford solely. I didn't even know that was a thing until, like, 2 days ago.
In-game pre-ordering. I love it.
Well, like, there's one that's really good, like, see, that would get it closer to, like, nightmare levels, is, like, you can get an upgrade for the common infected. The first one, it's like, I think it's maybe the first upgrade. I want to say it's their health and maybe their damage, but probably not. I'm for sure it's their health by 30%. Right. So they take a lot more ammo early game to kill. And then I think it's the third one in that same line gets their health up by 80%. So it's like, then they're, like, taking, like, monstrous common levels of damage, right?
Yeah.
like in terms of tankiness, which is like huge in Swarm when they're like can't put down the commons, especially if you have armored in there as well. But
yeah, which you could get. I mean, you get armor, you get like frenzy regeneration with the bruisers and stuff, bro. It gets so.
Yeah.
I know we keep going back to Swarm. I know that's
It's-
not like the focal point, but bro, this mode is good. I'm telling
Yeah.
you.
There's a
good.
reason they're both raving about it so highly, chat. You should check it out.
Yeah, we're not shilling. We said it the first episode, right? No transactions been made. I love that. That's like your go-to sake for that. It goes, no transactions been made.
Hey man, I've been
loving
fortunate
it.
enough to do sponsored opportunities for a bunch of games in the past, but Back 4 Blood is not one of them. You know, this is
we're
from the
being
heart.
truthful. This is legit. We all play a bunch of different games. You know, you've been getting into Chivalry too. Tony's been playing God knows what lately. Granted, you've been gone for a little bit, but you played a little bit of Skyrim. You know, GTFO a little bit here and there.
Oh, I want to play that. Now it's officially out. I want to go back to it and give it a look again. GTFO looking real
literally
good.
asking you for like days.
That's good.
I'm
Ready
like,
or
hey,
Not
man,
also good.
Are you gaming? Ready or Not, I heard really good things about it. The issue is that I have such a big backlog, and then Rainbow Six Extraction is like priority for me. Like I cannot wait for that. And Vermintide.
Speaking of Vermintide, well, Darktide, that actually reminds me, something I do want to see is more Twitch integration, a la like the lines of like Vermintide 2, where like chat on corruption cards would be so good, like for streamers I know specifically. But like if chat could choose our corruption cards or like to play stuff like that in the middle of a round, even if it was just like charred or blighted or volatile in a normal nightmare run, that would like be the level of like randomness that might push the difficulty up for us, because then it changes on the fly. But
I absolutely could not agree more. I think when I've played, so I've got a lot of time in Vermintide 2 because it is my favorite game in this genre that I've ever played.
To check how much time you got in that.
Incredible game. But the real benefit to it is when you've got that Twitch mode as a streamer, even though there's no getting around it, the game's Twitch numbers, they're not great. Even when I stream Vermintide 2, I get noticeably less than my usual average for variety.
Right.
But when I do stream it, that Twitch mode where you can watch the game and Twitch chat, for those of you watching that have no idea what we're talking about, there's a mode where basically Twitch chat controls the AI director. That's literally all it is the game will come up like once every 30 seconds with an on-screen option of, we're going to spawn this thing. Will it be A, B, C, or D? And it will be like, we're going to give you an item. Is it going to be one of these four? We're going to spawn a boss. Which boss is it going to be? And there are like so many absolutely insane and wacky things that you can do exclusive to the mode. It's not about being a balanced, authentic experience. It is about being batshit crazy. And Twitch chat is the one doing it. You know what I mean? And that is what makes it so fun. I have never experienced laughing with chat and just getting trolled to hell, but in a really fun way, like that Twitch mode. And that would fit back.
I want you guys to imagine something for me, right? So we're going to pretend that the mode is campaign versus, right?
Sure.
Or maybe it's a form of that. You know what? Forget that. Let's just say it's campaign, right?
Okay.
If you have your account, your Steam account or whatever, linked to your Twitch account, right? Let's say you want to donate a streamer an extra, whatever the streamer sets it to. Let's say, just for argument's sake, say it's $1, right? $1, and you can control the next tall boy that spawns.
Almost like
you're
invasion.
Not spawning one, but you get to control it like it's PvP.
Invasion would be
think
interesting.
There's some form of integration like that to really get your chat in a way to further enhance their experience.
I feel like
and
that
yours.
wouldn't work though, because if you were to control a special in someone else's game, you have to load into the game. So you'd have to like load in and be spectating while you waited. Because if it was like you paid $1 and you're now controlling a tall boy, you would load in, you'd obviously go on the game, load into the lobby, get into the lobby, play the tall boy, you get killed in 3 seconds, and now you're back at the main menu.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
And
why don't we go a different direction with it? Why don't I say, depending on what they set, what the streamer sets, you can spawn a horde of your choosing with a certain donation.
It's basically,
like,
it is basically
a tall boy horde, like something like that.
Yeah, what you're describing basically is the Twitch mode from Vermintide. Only it's not about money; it's just in game. Like you just link your Twitch with it, and boom, anyone in chat can do it.
Either way, it doesn't even need to be money. Like if there was a way to like occasionally get the chat more interacted with your run and kind of make it like your guys' play through together in a way, I think that.
That's like, so that one mod I play, like I've been playing on Skyrim, is chat integration, where chat can vote for like horrible things that, like, it spawns a dragon, or 30 cheese wheels are dropped on my head, or I get hit with the cauldron and die. Like, the thing is, like, there's got to be some, because they already do Twitch integration. A couple of the guys that have like done the Muxy stuff have asked me in my chat how it's been working and stuff, because you get like the name bar above like some of the infected and like all that jazz. So you would hope, and I mean, they've asked and they like have said to like, hey, like submit ideas or whatever to this thing, that they're looking at adding more stuff, because they have more ideas that they want to do. Like the guys that have been doing the Muxy integration for it seem like super engaged with it because of like the possibilities. And like they've been slowly pushing stuff out in like the patches for the Twitch integration as well. So like maybe we'll get lucky and get some more of that.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
I think there's pretty much no way that they won't be adding more stuff to it. On the sole idea that there's people that their job is alone working on this extension. So they're not just going to stop it at, naming written and having nameplates. I think we're going to see a lot more stuff over time. It's just a matter of what that's going to be.
It is also the kind of thing that they will have to do it slowly. Like, you kind of got to walk before you can run. Because last thing you want to do is like break the game on Twitch, and now you have to ignore it completely because it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's worst case scenario. So, but you know what? They know what they're doing, and that's the one thing I want to make sure, because we always give criticisms. Especially this episode, we've talked a lot about missing what Nightmare was and stuff.
Right from the get go, I was like, right, go Nightmare.
I don't want it to be like this, like negative thing, because at the end of the day, we all still love the game, and we all very much are thankful for what.
As long as you're constructive about it.
Attention, exactly. Yeah. It's not what you say; it's how you say it.
Yeah,
it's the point, and I do want to make it known that Turtle Rock has been one of the better companies that I've seen in general that's consistently in touch with their community. I see them all the time in Twitch streams, playing with streamers, active on Reddit, active on Twitter, constantly responding to feedback. And God knows the internet's a scary place to be if you're a developer. They don't have to do a lot of this shit, because we've all seen Twitter comments and how stupid some people are. But the point remains is that they stick to it and they do listen to the community. So I think this game is in really good hands. It's just a matter of time until we see a lot more implemented.
And
the community
it's still early.
Deserve them.
Yeah, they really don't. Dude, the internet is just brutal.
I think it depends on what parts of the community you see as well, because I tend to I avoid a lot of social media that isn't directly related to like what I do. So like,
idea.
I see a lot of Twitter, but I don't go looking. I don't use like official forums. I don't use Reddit. So like, I'm not gonna, pretend that it's not there because I don't see it. But the community I tend to see is the Twitch community and, comments on YouTube, but a lot of that's probably already from our audience as it is. But there's been a lot of crossover between I'll be streaming Back 4 Blood and I'll get comments about people like, hey, here from the build videos, just wanted to tune in and see what's going on. My experience with that has been really positive, but I know that's not the majority of what you'll see on like forums and stuff. So I, again, just to kind of reiterate that fact, appreciate Turtle Rock being as transparent as they are. I know it's difficult to do that, especially when you've got a publisher the size of Warner Brothers. I imagine that they definitely must have a lot of approval processes that need to be done, they definitely can't just say what they want when they want.
Even now, that whole thing with Tencent, but that's something we don't need to get into.
Oh, I wouldn't want to talk about that just because I don't know anything about it. I'd want to educate myself a bit
really
more and maybe cover that in future episodes. But as it stands, I'm incredibly uneducated in that, and I don't want to give an opinion on something that I don't understand.
If you guys didn't know, viewers and internet people, you're allowed to say you don't know enough about something to formulate an opinion.
Absolutely not.
Very important to understand that fact, that it's okay to say you don't know enough to formulate something. So, that's for another day.
Well, speaking of which, though, I think maybe we end today on a bit more of a light-hearted discussion. Just general holiday stuffs have been going on. Obviously, the game itself has changed a lot, but there's more to life than some of these crazy video games. How are things with holidays and New Year? We got any immediate plans going on? Anything to look forward to?
staying inside because I live in Florida and it's a Grand Theft Auto server out there. So definitely going to,
GTA RP.
It
real
really
life.
is, man. Florida's a whole separate universe on its
Yeah,
own.
there
but,
has got to be a Florida Man GTA RP server out there where everyone
Oh,
just
yeah.
it's
like
basically what Florida's based on as a whole.
no, but that's what you got to do. Like that is an RP server I want to see where you do that thing where you put your birthday followed by Florida Man and you get whatever article is up. You have to do that, but role play the Florida Man from your article. That's what that's the server I want to see.
You were there when KP and I were commentating CEO. We had to fill in for a little bit, and he literally told everyone watching, he said, go to Google, type in your birthday, and then Florida Man, and just see what the article is. I mean, Florida Man takes pet alligator into a gas station. There's
Why is there always something to do with an alligator? That's what I don't
because
get
it's
from Florida Man.
It's the fucking Everglades and all that shit, man. Dude, I'm telling you, it is absolutely, it's crazy out here. Don't even make me bring up the bath salts thing from 2012 when we had real life zombies out here in Florida. Bro, it was Back for Blood back in the day, man, with the original Xbox. It's just
I got one for Florida Man. I just did it.
Uh-oh.
I figured I saw you do it. I was like, oh, he's gonna do it.
We should all do it right now. Right now.
All right, I'll do it.
While I listen to this one.
Sure. Let me
Florida
hear it.
Man steals pool floats for sex.
Oh, brilliant.
I actually can't finish the second half of that sentence because it's not safe, but we'll just leave it at the first half.
Never is.
That's good enough on its own.
No, that is the mix-up with Florida Man. Is I'm gonna get one, but can I tell anyone about it, or is that gonna be weird? Oh, hello. What is this? Oh, come on, load it up. Florida Man tried to shoot a duck with a bow and arrow.
I can't even say mine.
Come on.
No, like I don't know if like this is okay. You might have to edit this out.
Oh, it's all right.
Everyone, you don't even get to hear mine because it's too explicit for the internet. So that is what we're talking about. That is my home. That is Florida. You couldn't even hear it. So what am I doing for New Year's? I'm probably going to be streaming and staying inside.
PvP, Swarm, right? That's what you'll be streaming.
Hey, listen, I'm telling you, man, we get a couple streamers, we find out a way to spectate it, and we do a 4v4 sweat lobby. That would be the most fun that all of us will see in a long time as far as Swarm goes.
Well, I can definitely say with certainty that I've been lurking in quite a bit of Swarm this week just because of the amount of streamers that are now giving it a try, and it looks fun. The most fun I have had as a viewer is when I watched streamers against each other, because it was just a fun dynamic. Like, it was just nice to see that kind of casualness, but kind of like the trash talk, but no one's taking it too seriously. It's not super sweaty, but at the same time, no one wants to lose. Like, it was that kind of really fun dynamic. I enjoyed that a lot over the last week anyway.
I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm not going to be able to do it with like no salt or no sweat.
Oh, no, salt is fine. Salt is absolutely okay. Expected, I would say, in this kind of
I did
game.
it last night with my community. We did a 4v4 private lobby, and I had us all in the same Discord channel, so we were all talking shit to each other. And then I lost the last game before I had to swap to a different game, and I was actually super salty because we lost by a few seconds, and then everyone's talking shit, and now my chat is ruthless, so now I get to never hear the end of it.
I mean, you need to be the number one recipient of all the trash, though, because you have to give it as good as you get.
I'm telling you right now, even other streamers that don't even know who I am, they'll use one of my emotes and be like, "You're that one. Like, you own those emotes. The
You're that
briefing
guy."
ones." I'm like, bro, that's not supposed to be what I'm known for. I'm switching games. He goes, all right, what are you griefing in now? I'm like, bro, stop. Like, I'm trying to like mix and match here. But now that's just what people know me. So now we move on to Swarm. That's all I hear. It's just griefing.
No, I think generally speaking, I'm going to be that guy and be like, New Year means, you know, lots of games to potentially cover in the year, especially in this genre. Like, doing so much Back 4 Blood towards the end of the year has me really realizing how much I enjoy doing stuff for games like this. So Dark Tide, my expectations could not be higher now because of the build-up. Rainbow Six Extraction, I cannot wait for, and that's like a month away. Obviously, outside of it, Elden Ring in February, King of Fighters in early Feb as well. Like DNF Duel was fun to play over the weekend, and that's next year.
God only knows when Multiverse
Multiverse is coming out at some point. Hopefully, we hear something about a new NetherRealm game. Like, there's so much that I'm excited for, and
it's going to be a juicy year. All right, so then you know what? Then let's end on this. Everyone say your most anticipated game of 2022.
Darktide.
God.
I kind of figured that was going to be yours. Tony, I'm going to give you 5 seconds. I'll say for me personally.
You've absolutely just opened a tab of what's coming out in 2022. I just saw that white flash from Google being opened in the background.
I will say for me, I think I'm going to have to give it to Rainbow Six Extraction.
It's literally at the beginning of the year, so not long to wait. Most anticipated game of 2022 is the first month of 2022.
I love the idea of Rainbow Six, but as like a 4-player co-op. I think it looks super fucking good. But then obviously, it's like closely behind Elden Ring. But I've been like staying away from all information of Elden Ring because I want it to be blind when I go in. I haven't even played Demon Souls. I don't even watch Demon Souls streams because I've never seen it. You know, I have to wait.
Demon Souls PS5 might be graphically the most impressive game I've ever played.
Very pretty.
Man.
It is gorgeous. Absolutely
I gotta
gorgeous.
hope it comes to PC eventually. Hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
Because there's no way I'm getting.
I know some of them are. Like I've been in the build up to Rainbow Six Extraction. I've been looking at like a lot of like original Rainbow Six games, like the slower paced, old fashioned ones. But
right.
like Ready or Not come out. I've been lurking that a bit, and that's obviously slow paced tactical shooter. So
it's great.
I remember how much I loved those games, but how bad I was at them growing up. And I know how much better I would be at them now if I was to play them. Seeing one kind of like that coming out for Rainbow Six in this kind of genre, like, I don't think I could be more interested in the potential for it.
No,
so,
I think there's a lot of
extremely looking
potential.
forward to it.
I hope it's as good as I think it will be. Are you still looking on your Google page?
I've got one.
All right, let me hear it.
Choo Choo Charles. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Was that an iPad game?
You are you are on a train and you're chased by another train that has spider legs.
I did. That was
Wait, what?
The Game Award. Yo, that actually looks really cool. I'm not gonna lie to you. That one, and then the Texas Chainsaw game.
Oh yeah.
Apparently,
I'm actually really looking forward to that.
Apparently, that's the same. Apparently, that's the same devs as the ones that did the Friday the 13th. So they got hit by that. Yeah, they got hit by that cease and desist on Friday the 13th, and now they're working with basically a different horror slasher icon.
The only time I fucking kickstart a game, of course, it's like hit with a cease and desist. I'll never do it again. Never again.
That's it. That'll teach you.
I mean, I hope it works out because Leatherface is a cool character and one of the genuinely, in my opinion, actually scarier like horror characters of that era. Because like you look at the horror, like, I don't want to say slasher villains because like Leatherface is not a slasher villain. It's not a slasher franchise, but kind of lumped in the same category of horror icons from the time. And Freddy, more comic relief the older you get. Like Jason, Mike Myers, if you don't find that kind of slow, silent, looming, threat terrifying, it's not really going to do anything for you. For me, Leatherface was always the one that could have been the more believable because technically there's nothing unrealistic about him.
Well, it's based on a true story.
Not really, no. That's always been no. It's basically it's based on the fact that Ed Gein made clothes out of human remains. And obviously Leatherface's whole thing is he makes wearable masks and headwear.
So kind of like just expanded on that.
They took that one loose thing and did the whole Hollywood marketing of based on a true story. And it's like, no.
Very smart, very smart. I didn't know that, so I always thought there was like a thing.
But hey, not knowing it definitely added to your kind of mysteriousness around it, right?
It's just
Evil Dead, the Evil Dead game that's supposed to be like the 4v1.
Wait, is that a thing?
Yeah.
They announced that a while ago.
That's the one I was thinking of. I forgot about it. That's the.
No, they have been hard at work on that for a while as well. Like
bullshit.
It looks like
that's a real thing.
No, it looks like the first true built to be a Dead by Daylight competitor, but not just be Dead by Daylight that I've seen in a while. Because I feel like a lot of games, they either try and just be Dead by Daylight, but it's not going to be as good, so they settle for, like, you know, a runner-up to it. And then there's games that will actively... Like, you know the way when Fortnite got big, like, every game was coming out and it was trying to be Fortnite, and it was never going to be Fortnite. And then something like, for example, Apex Legends came out, and it's like, absolutely in no way is it trying to be Fortnite, but it's definitely still cashing in on the Battle Royale craze, but it's doing it in its very original way, and it was obviously a huge success and still is now. I hope that Evil Dead is like that.
Actually real.
Yeah, I hope Evil Dead is more like that, because, you know, Dead by Daylight has ruled that genre with an iron fist for a long time, and I wish we could see more games try to be different, that it's not just going to crumble under the shadow of it, but at the same time, you know, it's going to still appeal to the same player base.
I'm in. Yeah, I didn't know this was a thing, and this looks super cool, and it says February.
Really?
Yep.
That's a lot sooner than I
February 2022.
We'll be eating well in the early year, boys.
It's actually crazy.
This is a juicy year.
I mean, even the first 2 months of it, like, early Jan is the Anacrusis, late Jan is Extraction, early Feb is King of Fighters 15, late Feb is Elden Ring. That's just 2 months.
Dying
and that's
Light
like,
as well, early Feb.
Oh
Yeah,
my god, Dying Light 2, I keep forgetting about that.
February 4th, I think you said?
Feb 4th.
Yeah, we were talking about that before we went live. Dude,
Yeah, it's a good time.
I'm gonna go broke.
After years of constant delays due to COVID, it's nice to see that this much is coming out this quickly. And it's like, they're actually coming out. We're not going to be waking up tomorrow to a new article saying, Rainbow Six delayed until March. Which could happen.
I mean,
but
it could happen.
But you would assume it would be gold by now, right? If it's like a month away,
I mean,
surely it would be gold.
But I don't assume shit anymore, the way how the world is. Like I said, we can't assume things are always going to come out on time. Like, the cool thing about this is that there's so many games that even if some of them gets delayed even more, you have plenty. You're going to have plenty.
Yep.
I couldn't agree more. On that note, though, I think we've kind of covered everything we were going to cover. And this is anything that's missing out that comes to mind?
I don't think so.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
No, honestly, thank you so much for being our first guest. This is it definitely took a lot longer to get our second episode off the ground than we both initially intended, but you know, holidays coming in, you know, not knowing, we did want to wait for the patch, and then the patch came, and then it was like holiday time and availability and all that, but you know how it is. But really appreciate you coming on, honestly. Of course, before we do close up for the day, Anxiety, where can the viewers find you? Plug those socials.
Twitch.tv/anxiety or Twitter.com/anxietony. I think that's my handle. That's it. That's all I got. Thank you.
Brilliant. Right. Well, no, once again, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a nice chill time, and I think we covered a lot of important stuff today. You know, the game is very different, and, you know, whilst it's not been unanimously amazing feedback-wise from all of us, it's definitely going in a good direction. You know, the game is still healthy, and lots of stuff to look forward to within the rest of the year for the roadmap. But that is going to be it from us for today. Thank you so much for tuning in at home. I do hope you've enjoyed sitting down with us and hearing us talk all that shit for an hour and a half or however long this was. Super fun, super chill. Of course, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all that good stuff. I do wish you all the very, very best as we go into a new year in 2022, as you know, things are still looking a little bit crazy, but you know, we're all in this together, and fingers crossed the next year's better for all of us, as we can return to offline events, more games, you know, doing their thing, and content and all that good stuff. So much love, take care, peace out, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode of Cleaner's Corner. See you later.